In this video, we are going to set up a Harley Benton Stratocaster, but if you're watching this video just to get a beginner's tutorial and some help on how to set up your guitar, maybe you just started playing and you find it kind of difficult to press down your strings, then hopefully this will help you. This video is more for people who maybe have their first guitar and want to make it play a little bit better and want some help. But before we start, I want to say that I made a series called Building Jimi Hendrix Harley Benton Guitar, and that series is basically me trying to see how good of a guitar I could make out of a kit guitar. And you can find a lot of information in that build series to help you along to make an even better guitar out of whatever guitar you have. There's a lot of information there, so if you're interested in more than just this video, I would recommend you watch that build series. There is a playlist that you can find on my YouTube channel, so please check that out and see if there's something there that maybe can inspire you or help you. This is the Harley Benton guitar that I recently bought, and if you've seen the review, you know that I said that I wasn't too impressed about the guitar and it has some issues that I want to take care of. And so that's what we're going to do today. We're mostly going to focus on the neck, but we're also going to talk a little bit about the pickups and things like that, and intonation. So let's just get started real quickly. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to check the string height and we're going to adjust the neck. You can measure the string height, how far it goes down to the fret on somewhere around the 12th fret. For example, I remember from my last video that this was 6 mil. Now, if you have a notch stret edge, you can put that on the frets and you can see the gap in between the flat spots and the fretboard, and if there is a gap, you know that you have a back bow. Now, if you don't have one of those, you can line up a regular ruler, the seam between the fretboard and the neck, and you can measure that way and see if it's straight. Now, it's kind of hard for me to show you doing this, but it's very easy. You just hold it up alongside, and that will help you see if it is straight. You can also just hold the neck like this, and most likely you should be able to just look down the neck like this and see if it is straight. What do we need to do? Well, in most cases you have the access to the truss rod up here. The truss rod is just a metal piece that goes straight down inside the neck, and that's what stabilizes the neck and makes sure that it doesn't move. For example, if you didn't have a truss rod, the neck would over time get more and more and more warped, and you will find that some old guitars are unplayable because of that. So you take your little hexagon key that you most likely got with the guitar and you put it into that hole so it sticks out like this, and now you can bend it. If you hold the guitar like this, bend it to your left or to your right. If you bend it to your right, you will tighten the truss rod, straightening it, and if you bend it to your left, you will loosen it, allowing more curve. You will hear people say things like, you really shouldn't adjust your neck yourself, it's really dangerous and things like that, but if you're just taking it slowly, you will be able to do it, and it's not that big of a deal. Don't be scared. It will take a lot to actually break a truss rod. They're very durable. Be careful, but don't be scared. Now I've turned it a little bit and hopefully you can see that it's almost straight. You want to have a little relief in the neck, just slightly. If you have a really poor quality, low budget beginner instrument, you might not be able to get away with as much as someone with a really high-end expensive guitar. Okay, so the next step is we're going to use the other little hexagon tool that you got, and we're going to adjust saddles down here and just screw them one turn or maybe half a turn, move over to the next one and unscrew that one, and go through all the strings and do that. Take a pause after doing it for a little bit and measure at the 12th again. I think that a reasonable place to aim for on a setup of a beginner guitar is around 2 mil, maybe 2.5 mil, around the 12th fret. The 12th fret is the one that has 2 dots on it. So right in the middle here, we are just going to measure. You can measure with whatever you want to. Once you're happy with the string height and you have it roughly around 2 millimeters, it can be 3 millimeters if you're going to put on thicker strings. Do keep in mind, if that's something you're actually going to do, As a beginner, it's usually harder to play the guitar with thick of a string, and also you're gonna have to adjust the neck again, because the thicker the strings are, the more they will pull on the neck. So keep that in mind. If you're interested in a video about this topic in more detail, let me know in the comments below, because this is just supposed to be a beginner guitar setup and not talking about things like string gauges. When you're happy with the string height anyway, with the strings the guitar comes with, assuming they're still on the guitar, you have to play all the frets. And you just put your first finger on the first fret, and then on the second, and the third, and so on. And so quickly just play all the notes, and if you hear buzzing, that means that you have a high fret, and you have two options. You can either level the frets, or you can raise the string until the buzzing goes away. I would suggest you maybe first start with raising the strings a little bit and see if it goes away, but if it gets to a point where it needs to be really high and it's sort of hard to play, then I would say that you have to make sure the neck is super straight, and then you have to go in with a sanding beam and level the frets. I've done videos on how to level frets before, and I don't feel like it's really a part of setting up a guitar. It's a little bit more than the basic stuff, so you can definitely go and watch those videos. There are also other YouTubers that have done great videos on leveling, but it's basically super simple. You color in with a marker the frets, and then you level the frets with a sanding beam. You use really nice grid like 400 or 800, and then you crown the frets, and the way you do that is you have the fret like this, and you just file the sides with a file to create sort of sharpness. Then you can use some really fine sandpaper, like 1000 grit, to smooth them out and make them really nice and rounded over. And after that you can polish, which is what we're going to talk about next. Okay, so I'm not sure if you can really see the way my frets look, but they are basically black. They're really oxidated and dull. And if I play the guitar like this and I try to do bends, I will have issues where you can hear scratchy sounds, and the strings won't glide over the frets as easy as they do if they're highly polished. Now, if you're a beginner, you might not actually need to polish your frets, because you might not be good enough at playing guitar yet where you need to have really high polished fret. But it could be really nice to have, because you'll one day want to learn it, and you never know when that day comes. It might be 2 weeks into learning how to play the guitar, it might be 6 months. So you have to take off the strings, and you have to put masking tape over the fretboard, but not over the frets. And then you can go over the frets with steel wool and sandpaper, and then you can polish them. If you see any of my build videos in more detail, see me do this, but it's something really simple to do. I'm going to do this to this guitar, but I'm not going to do it in this video because I have other things that I'm going to do with this guitar first. So I won't show you how to do it in this video, but just know it's super simple to do. And even if you think you can't do it, you can. And you don't have to worry so much about what kind of steel wool. The finer steel wool you can get, the better. But any steel wool will do, and any steel wool will be better than not doing anything. After you're pretty much done with the string height and the frets, you might have to do something about the nut. And the way you know if you need to do something about the nut is you press down the first fret, and if you feel like the angle is hard for you, more so than, for example, on the second, that means that these slots are too high. Now, you have to take a pen and cleave it in half, like this, and then you can let it ride on the frets, like this, and make a line. Then you have to measure from the top of the nut to that line and see how much you have to remove. Then take this out, flip it around, and on the underside you remove that much. Because as a beginner you're gonna have issues with cutting the slots in the nut down. It is the better way of doing things, but as a beginner I think it's easier to just remove the underside of the nut until it is high enough. But do this very carefully, because it's always easier to remove more than it is to add on. If you remove too much, you can always put in a tiny little bit of paper cardboard or very tiny piece of wood or something to raise it back up. But the best thing is to remove a tiny bit and come back and check it out, and then remove a tiny bit, and so on until you are happy with the string height. Okay, so the next part is you're gonna have to intonate the guitar. That's how you get it to sound the best, because it doesn't really matter what you play if you're not in tune. And intonating is just being in tune all across the fretboard. So what you need to do is you have to tune the guitar one string at a time, make sure it's tuned open, and then press it down at the 12th and play it. And if it's not in tune here, you need to adjust the saddle right here. And on a strat like this, it's this little screw here, and you just have to move it back and forth until the note rings true. So you're gonna have to tune the guitar and play it, adjust, play it, retune it, and adjust and play and retune it a bunch of times until they are the same. Now to check it, you can also play some of the open notes here. And make sure they are also in tune. And when you basically have notes up here and the 12th that are in tune with the open, you're all done. This can be really tedious, but the more times you do it, the less time it will take. And you really only have to do it when you switch gauge of strings. So be patient and do it, and it will probably work out good for you. I believe in you. There are tuners that can help you to do this easier, and so if you have a lot of guitars, it might be good to invest in this. But again, this video is for anyone who is new to guitar and want to set up their... After that, we're gonna adjust the pickup heights. You can see right here that the pickups are raised a lot, and so we can just take these screws and we can push them down. You take a screwdriver like this one and you adjust the pickup. And I would say start off by having it really far down like this. I would say most guitarists like to have their pickups somewhere around there, so you can see how big of a difference the adjustment we did right here is now. It will make the pickup sound a little bit more smooth and not as sharp, and it will also make the attack a little bit more even when you hit the strings. But some people like to have a really punchy sound, and so you might want to adjust the pickup the other way. Just make sure that the pole pieces, which is magnet that stick up in the top, don't actually touch the strings. That's a sound no guitar player wants. If you want to use the tremolo, you're gonna have to open up the back here to adjust it. And the way you do that is you unscrew these 4 screws. If your springs are as dirty as these are, which is absolutely not okay, you can either clean them with some rust removal or you can replace them entirely. They are so rusty in this guitar that I doubt that I'm ever going to be able to make them work completely. But if you don't have these issues and you just want to make this playable, what you need to do is adjust these screws right here. And you basically just screw on them until the tremolo here is able to move in a way that you're comfortable with. Some people want it to be a little bit loose, and some people want it to be a little bit hard. It depends on what you like, and I would say that if you're a beginner, maybe make it a little bit looser and see if stiffening it up later will help you play the way you want to. You can also make it really, really loose and then put in something like, for example, you can push in the plate underneath here, so it just goes in a little bit like that far or something. And then go back to the back and adjust this to the point where you're comfortable with the way it moves. And then you can take the plate away and you'll have the bridge sort of floaty, and you can bend both ways. That's usually how I set up my tremolos, and it works great. That should really be all you need to do with the guitar. And if it still doesn't play nice, maybe you should take it to someone to have an actual setup. Or there is some other issue that is more serious that we can't really talk about in this video, and you would have to write comments below talking to me about those things instead, because there can be things like bad saddles or bad tuners. Again, check out my Jimi Hendrix build video, because I do show you there some more advanced things for how to make the tuners better than what they actually are and stuff like that. But if you have any questions or you need any help with something regarding your guitar, don't forget to write a comment below, and I'll do my very best to answer those questions and help you out with guitar, because I think it's important that when we're trying to learn how to play the guitar, we have instruments that allow us to do our best, even if we're not Jimi Hendrix yet. So anyway, stay awesome and cool, and don't forget to practice, because practice makes perfect.